Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiET.
Bandwidth for This Week in Enterprise Tech is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiET, This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 261, recorded October 13th, 2017. TWiL and TWiET, fixing CRCs. This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Home plays a big role in your life. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. It lets you apply simply and understand the entire mortgage process fully so that you can be confident that you're getting the right mortgage for you. Get started at rocketmortgage.com/enterprise. Welcome to TWiET, This Week in Enterprise Tech. It's the show dedicated to the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and the geek who just wants to know how the world is connected. I'm your host, Father Robert Ballasare, the digital Jesuit, your guide to all things in the enterprise. But I can't guide you by myself. It's an awfully big world. I'm going to need some help from my friends, starting with Mr. Lou Maresca. He is, we bounce around on titles. You were senior booth babe for a while. You were the head honcho for another couple of weeks. Now you're the principal engineering manager at Microsoft. Lou, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Yeah, doing real great. We have the aftermath of Ignite. We're doing some new stuff for the end of the year, so we're keeping real busy.
How long does it take a company like Microsoft to recover from an event like Ignite? Because Ignite was pretty intense.
You know, Ignite is really cool because you get to talk with so many people and so many customers and partners that you get so much insights. You bring that back and you spend weeks, if not months, kind of figuring out what's next. And I think that it's a lot of fun. So it's usually a couple months, though.
Did you at least have a day where you could just sort of go into a semi-coma and just not deal with anything?
You know, Ignite on Thursday nights they actually open up Universal Studios and it's like closed to everybody else, but open to Ignite, so you can spend like 4 hours in the park. So it was a good time.
All right, well, that's Lou Maresca. Evidently, he gets energy from all that craziness. Speaking of craziness, we've got our very own geek in paradise. That's right, Mr. Brian Chi. He is the director of the Advanced Network Computing Laboratory in Honolulu, Hawaii, and his air conditioner is still not fixed. Brian, I am so happy, but you seem to be losing weight from the sweat.
Well, hey, I'm not going to have to worry. You know, we got that big notice from our administration on what to do in case there's a nuclear attack.
Oh, good. Yeah. So duck and cover, just, get under the desk.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Wow, that harkens back to the 80s. Well, gentlemen, we've got quite a show. We haven't done something like this in almost 2 years, not since we were back in the brick house. We're going to be doing a crossover episode. That's right, This Week in Enterprise Tech, along with This Week in Law, with none other than Denise Howell. She'll be joining us in just a bit. She's sitting back. She's just getting the lay of the land, making sure that she can stand us. We're giving her that option. But we'll be bringing her in to fix. That's right, folks. We're going to fix the credit industry and Social Security numbers. So that's all coming up. But first, as we always do, we need to kick it off with the blips. Now, last week, we reported on the 2015 loss of highly sensitive security material from the home of a fired NSA contractor who had installed the Kaspersky AV suite, which appeared to have been used to home in on the sensitive files. Now, coming after vague intelligence about the trustability of the security company, the incident did have security pundits wondering if this was malfeasance on the part of Kaspersky or just a compromised distribution. A smoking gun it was not, but it did raise a lot of questions about the increasing number of security incidents that involve Kaspersky software. This week, it's not a smoking gun, it's a bombshell. On Tuesday, the New York Times reported that Israeli intelligence had penetrated Kaspersky's corporate network and used their access to watch Kaspersky assist a hack in real time. The report was corroborated by an NSA agent. Though the details of what assistance meant in the hack, it was most likely an abuse of the scanning routines that allowed the attacker to search for specific files and keywords across the more than 400 million computers currently using Kaspersky AV. Parsing the document, it seems to suggest that it wasn't possible for the software or the service to be altered in this way without the knowledge of Kaspersky corporate. Kaspersky Lab, of course, denies any involvement with the event and maintains that it has no inappropriate ties to any government. But the Wall Street Journal reported that U.S. intelligence officials, in the lead up to the banning of Kaspersky software on all government computers, had spent months trying to trigger such malicious behavior. Their investigation led them to conclude that the AV was indeed being used to detect classified material. Bottom line, if you have Kaspersky AV installed on any of your devices, you may want to reconsider.
So most enterprise-ready devices today have TPM or trusted platform modules. And if you're familiar with the chip, it's a crypto microcontroller. That means it has encryption keys, and it keeps those keys as well as some biometric information and other secured data. And it's stored within a sandbox, or is essentially protected away from the OS from things like malware. Well, TPMs to date have been pretty secure, but because of recently a large manufacturer of the chips called Infineon Technologies announced that some of the TPMs were generating insecure RSA keys. Although this is not a direct vulnerability, this just means that the systems that rely on TPM and secured keys might be open to other vulnerabilities. There's no documented cases of exploits yet, but that doesn't mean there won't be. This affects Lenovo, HP, Fujitsu, and Chromebooks alike. What can you do to prevent it now? Well, Google's Chromium page actually really does a good job of actually outlining the versions of the TPM hardware and firmware that are affected and the potential issues. So take a look at that page. But if you determine that there's an issue, stop relying on TPM. Like, for instance, use your BitLocker on your device, but don't use the TPM to store your encryption keys. Maybe just use passwords, and don't use biometrics for right now until it's actually resolved. Hopefully, manufacturers can provide a seamless firmware update soon that will help mitigate and reduce that risk service as we move on. But right now, we'll just have to wait and see.
The Google Loon gets the okay to fly over Puerto Rico. The Federal Communications Commission has approved a license to enable Alphabet X Innovation Lab to set up its Project Loon communication system to provide emergency cell service to hurricane-devastated Puerto Rico. In a story by a good friend, Wayne Rash of eWeek, he talks about how it was first the hams helping out, especially since the mobile and landline carriers were making slow progress due to the devastation. Even with the help of the ITDRC, Information Technology Disaster Resource Center, go gang, folks dropping in temporary communication systems, Puerto Rico is really hurting, with many citizens unable to reach out to their friends and families. What Wayne's article talks about is the Google Loon project getting a temporary FCC license to fly the balloons over Puerto Rico to provide LTE data and voice communication services while the traditional carriers slowly push through the wreckage while rebuilding the island's communications infrastructure. Fly high and prosper, Google Loons.
Now, I have often said that Amazon is an incredible logistics company that just happens to sell you food, clothing, and gadgets. But now the online giant is ratcheting up their logistics foo one level by replacing FedEx and UPS for third-party sales. Now, Project Seller Flex was started by Amazon India 2 years ago and has been gaining momentum from early results. The project attempts to take away some of the guesswork with third-party sales by replacing outside shipping providers with an in-house service that takes delivery of sold merchandise from third-party merchant warehouses. By doing so, Amazon becomes less eBay, with the merchant essentially trading on Amazon's reputation, and more, well, Amazon, which can then still choose the best last-mile delivery service to ensure a proper Amazon shopping experience. Amazon can still use FedEx and UPS for that last mile, but Project Seller Flex lets Amazon make that decision. The service has already spread to parts of the West Coast of the United States and should see broader rollout in 2018.
As if Equifax hasn't been in the news enough, they have another problem that surfaced in this past Thursday. One of the third-party vendors was running malicious code on one of their websites. Although this page wasn't part of their online dispute portal, it could affect customers visiting this specific page on their site. How deep does it go? Well, essentially, it involves a third-party vendor that deals with collecting website telemetry data for their pages and applications around performance. But the code used to collect the data was also serving out malicious content. What's this nebulous malicious content, you ask? Well, it starts out with random pop-ups on the page that trick visitors into installing fraudulent Adobe Flash updates that actually infect your machine with malware. To me, this second issue might have offered additional proof of their nonchalant take on security, causing them potentially more financial headaches in the future, as if they weren't going to have those as well already. As we talk later on today, this is definitely not the end.
Well, Dubai's airport is installing a video tunnel with facial and iris scanners to improve security. Quote, a lot of passengers come and go through Dubai's airports, and by 2020, they're expected to play host to some 124 million people. So in an effort to increase the efficiency of security checkpoints, Dubai International Airport is installing a tunnel outfitted with 80 facial recognition and iris scanning cameras, the national reports. The tunnel's walls can display things like virtual aquariums or deserts, as well as advertisement, and passengers would just have to walk through as they normally would. At the end of the tunnel, a display will tell the passengers to have a nice trip or alert officials to take another look. The key to this new approach is to have video playing on the walls of the tunnel to attract the eyes of the travelers to make the facial and iris scanning technology more efficient. Obaid Al-Hameri, the Deputy Director General of Dubai Residency and Foreign Affairs, alluded in an interview with The National to perhaps someday being able to do away with the old checkpoint-style technology someday. So, to our friends at TSA, maybe we need to take a good hard look at where our Middle Eastern neighbors are going instead of traditional screening processes.
Renewable energy has been the green ticket item of data centers for the past decade or more. Players from Facebook to Google to Microsoft and Apple have all but built their latest data centers with some form of renewable power, decreasing or eliminating their need to draw from the grid. Contrary, however, to what traditional fuel fans might think about renewables versus coal and gas, it's starting to look like these deployments aren't a get the green folk off my back token move, but a harbinger of the future. The International Energy Agency, in their latest report, noted that 2016 saw solar power generation grow faster than any other energy source. 165 gigawatts of renewable energy generation was installed last year, which accounted for 2/3 of all energy source growth, more than half of which was deployed in China. In fact, the IEA estimates that 1,000 gigawatts of renewable power generation will be installed over the next 5 years, a milestone that took coal 80 years to reach. That does it for the blips. Next up, we're coming to the bites, but before we do that, let's go ahead and take a moment to thank a sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Now, let me ask you a question. You enjoyed the last time you applied for a mortgage, right? I mean, it was a lot of fun. It really pumped up your ego. It was all the things that you wanted to do. Well, of course it wasn't. Applying for a mortgage is horrible, made more horrible by the fact that it just hasn't kept up with what we expect out of a world of technology. We're still in the era of boxes of receipts and old pay stubs when we should be in the one-click mortgage business, which is why we are so happy to have Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans as a sponsor of the TWiET Rocket. Now, they understand that the mortgage experience wasn't keeping up with the times. It was dated and it needed a client-focused technological revolution. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. Rocket Mortgage gives you the confidence you need when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. It's simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident that you're getting the right mortgage for you. It's also convenient. Their trusted partners allow you to share your financial information with Rocket Mortgage at the touch of a button. It's powerful. Whether you're looking to buy your first home or your 10th, Rocket Mortgage is able to perform thousands of calculations in just seconds. Now, based on your income, your assets, and your credit, Rocket Mortgage can analyze all of the home loan options for which you qualify and find the one that's right for you. This isn't a cookie-cutter template. They're not trying to force you into a loan, into a mortgage. They're trying to find an agreement, a way of payment, a way of dealing with this, integrating it into your life that makes it not a burden, but something that propels you to the future. It's Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loan. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/enterprise. That's rocketmortgage.com/enterprise. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030. And we thank Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. And we're going to do something a little different. Normally, we don't bring the guest in until the third segment, but in this particular case, I think our guest has a unique ability to help us with the bite. Let's welcome back to the show. It's been a while. Miss Denise Howell from This Week in Law. Denise, it's so good to see you. How are you?
It's great to see you too. I'm well, thank you. Great to see you all.
Now, I'm pretty sure I checked our old schedule. I don't think we've done a crossover episode for about 2 years. We go way too long in between those episodes.
We do, and it seems like that time just flies, but I'm glad we're remedying it.
Indeed. And the reason why we brought you on, of course, is because we've got an answer. We've got a way to fix the credit world and the fix SSNs. But before we get there, I wanted to bring you in to talk a little bit about our bite, because the Department of Justice is doing something that they tried just a few years back, and this time it looks like they've got the ammunition to push it through. Let me give us all the background. Now, as reported by Ars Technica, the Department of Justice is once again making a case for weakened encryption, which is a euphemism for backdoor, in enterprise and consumer products and services. Now, you may remember that the Department of Justice made a big push into this area a few years back. They were beaten back. The tech industry was united in explaining to them why it was a bad idea to install backdoors into their products. And then they were joined by representatives from both sides of the aisle in Congress who actually understood the math of the problem. Well, it was only a matter of time, and now it's back. At a speech given this past Tuesday at the Naval Academy, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said encrypted, quote, encrypted communications that cannot be intercepted and locked devices that cannot be opened are law-free zones that permit criminals and terrorists to operate without detection by police and without accountability by judges and juries, unquote. Now, in the speech, Rosenstein referenced the U.S. government versus Apple during the San Bernardino shooting case, during which Apple refused to break their own encryption technology. So that we don't get political, let me make his case. Let me try to be as honest and true to what his arguments are, because I think he does have a case that he can make. Now, it appears that the Department of Justice has learned from their just trust us push last time. That's essentially what they're saying. They're saying, look, we're the DOJ. We're going to work with the intelligence agencies. You can trust us with the backdoor keys. We'll keep them safe. That didn't fly, so this time it's much more nuanced. He acknowledged that encryption is important. In fact, he said, quote, encryption is a foundational element of data security and authentication, and that it is essential to the growth and flourishing of the digital economy, and that we in law enforcement have no desire to undermine it, unquote. So he understands that. That's a big area of sensitivity. However, he then takes one step forward, and he says that current encryption is warrant-proof, and that our devices have engineered away the ability to give law enforcement access to data even with a warrant. So he drones on for a while, but his sell was this. He knows that hardware companies typically maintain private keys that are used to sign software updates for their devices. What he's suggesting, or what he seems to suggest, is those keys are well guarded by the companies, so why couldn't the government guard them as well? Okay, so I think that's an honest representation of what he's asked for. Of course, he's testing it out at a speech where it's going to be relatively popular, but now they're going to have to sell it to the public. Let's go ahead and open this up. Denise, you're our guest, so I'm going to give this to you first. This sounds like the same stuff that we got with the Clipper chip and with the first and second and third rounds of backdoors. Is this really different, or are they just using different language to make us think that it's different?
I feel like you're onto something there, that we're hearing sort of a question of semantics here. This also reminds me of the back and forth between Apple and the FBI when they wanted Apple to write code that would have let them into the iPhone of the San Bernardino shooter. And Apple had a bunch of reasons why it wasn't going to cooperate with the FBI to make that happen. The legal bases that Apple was trotting out there never got tested by a court because, as we all know, the FBI got into that device without Apple's help. But one of the arguments that Apple would have made there, and that companies other than Apple or along with Apple may make now in response to what you've just described, is a First Amendment argument, because there is precedent out there that establishes that code can be speech protected by the First Amendment. So one of the things that Jennifer Gronick, the director of civil liberties for the Center of Internet and Society at Stanford Law School, has said, that Apple's or any company's signing those digital encryption keys is akin to their endorsement that the code is safe for people to run, that cryptographically signing the software has a communicative aspect to it that is compelled speech if you force them to do it. So I think that they may have some constitutional arguments to make along those lines.
All right. Now, let's back up a little bit, because we both brought up the San Bernardino case where the government was trying to compel Apple to invent a technology. Because you have to remember that the Apple encryption, Apple security was actually very tight, very well designed. There wasn't a set of keys that Apple could turn over to the U.S. government and say, we'll use these to get into the device. The U.S. government was actually trying to say, gather together some engineers, make a technology to break your encryption, and then give that technology to us, and we will only use it one time. Now, as you mentioned, that case was dropped before it went to a decision because the FBI said, well, we found another way to get in. But also, there was a lot of analysis at the time, and I believe this came up on TWiL, that the FBI didn't want this going to a decision, because if it did, it would quite possibly create a precedent, making their jobs even harder. Was that about right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that both parties had their own reasons for being happy that they didn't have to take it further at that time. But, you know, if the Department of Justice heads down the road that you've described, we may see those arguments being made again in a different context, different setting.
Right. Lou, let me throw over to you. Now, there is an interesting sidestep that is taking place here, because they know that if they jump into the, well, we want to backdoor into the encryption, we want to backdoor into the encryption, that it's just going to meet the same resistance that they did last time, that the same experts are going to come out and say you can't have weakened encryption. Weakened encryption is the same thing as having no encryption. So what the DOJ here is doing, and I think it's actually much better than what they did in the past, is they're saying, look, you can keep your encryption. However, the keys that you use to sign software that updates these devices, if we can get access to these keys, then we can force an update onto a device in question and bypass that, because now we own the operating system, so it doesn't matter what encryption that they've added onto it aftermarket. Is that really different, or is it really just moving it slightly down the pipeline?
So anytime anytime you give away the keys of the kingdom to more than one person, the less that security becomes effective. So now you're saying that, now they're saying, okay, well, hardware manufacturers have the key. I have the key because I know the passwords and ways to unlock it. Now somebody else. So now you have this three-way, and again, your system is only as good as its weakest link. So now we're saying that we're also letting the government store these things, which haven't always been the best for storing things that are secure, but let's say they are. Let's say theoretically saying they're pretty good at doing it. But that also doesn't stop them unless we establish a bunch of rules, regulations, and laws around the fact of when they can use them, which let's say we do that as well. So, now we're getting closer to what we really want is we potentially have one additional person that has the key to the kingdom, but they're restricted for when they use it, and they can only use it during specific circumstances, and it's very secure. But to get to those points is, I would say, years of work. Years of work and millions of dollars to get there. So, I get the argument, but I don't think it's very soon.
All right. Now, Chibert, let me throw to you here, because there's an interesting point to be made that I think you can uniquely make. You've had experience in this area, and that is, I think most of us would agree that law enforcement should be able to get in devices and access data once they've obtained a warrant. So if they've gone through the legal process, we believe that. We believe in the system of law. That's what we do here. However, the incongruency comes from the fact that that last part, after the warrant is issued, is how do you get into the device? And essentially what the DOJ is saying, what our intelligence agencies have been saying, what our government is trying to say is, just trust us. We won't abuse the power. Unfortunately, we've had way too many examples of them abusing that power. The exact same arguments were made when we established the FISA courts, that they would only use this in worst case scenarios. And now the FISA courts are being used all the time to grant these in the cover of darkness exemptions to constitutional rights. So how do you fix those? How do you go from I want to support law enforcement to I'm going to give you the keys and just trust that you're not going to do anything bad with them?
Well, one of the things that I'll use an example from my private life instead of that life, and that is I used to work with the second largest internet service provider in the country for convention centers. Now, we trusted our employees, but we didn't really want to give them the master keys. So what we used to do is anytime one of our people were at a convention center and we needed to make some hands-on changes to, say, the boundary router, we would issue them a set, basically a password that was a one-time. I could get in once, and it would immediately disable after we logged in. And so that worked out really well, and we never gave away the master keys. I personally think, well, this is actually one of the conversations from my past life when I started proposing this on the Clipper chip, because I was actually supporting not the original Clipper chip, but a modified one where we would have one-time keys, one-time passwords, so that you would have to go through a very large minefield to get permission to even get that one-time key, but you would never, ever, ever get access to the master key. That is my personal spin on how it could work someday in the future.
Well, see, Hubert, here's the thing. We can do that now. That is a solution that is absolutely technically feasible, but that's not what they're asking for. And that's why it's got a lot of us who watch this for a living who are saying, if you're not asking for that, and instead you're just asking us to trust you, it means we shouldn't trust you because you know that this is a possibility. It's just not really a possibility that gives you what you truly want, and that is unfiltered, unfettered access to the data. Let me go to you, Denise, because there is a legal question here, and that is the argument that is used most often is, well, once we get the warrant, we should be able to get the data. How difficult, what is the burden of proof on law enforcement to get that kind of a warrant? Because there's this weird thing that we've got in the world of technology where law enforcement suddenly has access to so much more information than they would have in, say, the 60s or the 70s. It's at their fingertips. It's up in the cloud. It's on these devices that are connected 24/7. And the allure of being able to access those devices anytime they want is almost impossible to ignore. But taking away the fact that they'd like to access that data, how much of a burden of proof do they have to actually get a warrant to access that data?
You know, I'm not a criminal lawyer and have never practiced criminal law in my life, so I don't know the exact standard of proof that they're held to, but it is an exacting standard. They have to come in and convince a court, we are conducting this investigation. We reasonably believe that information vital to the investigation is on this device and we need access. Now where it gets complicated is lots of other things are on that device too, and courts have stepped in and reined in the actions of law enforcement when they have decided, oh, okay, we've accessed this device according to this warrant where we told the court we were looking for information in one category, but oh, we also stumbled on other things in a completely different part of the device that led us to know some other wrongdoing had happened too. And they are restricted from being able to do that. So they've got a couple of gateway protections. Number one is getting a warrant is not just a rubber stamp from the court. You do have to go in and demonstrate why you need access to that device in the service of carrying out your investigation. And secondly, you don't just have free reign to delve through every file on the device in conducting that investigation. You can, I mean, you know, the classic example or, sorry about that.
That's the FISA court. They'd like to have a word with you.
Right, exactly. Sorry, between shows, I moved the phone back in here. Silly. Anyway, they can't just go rummaging through everything they find on the device. And what I was going to say is, you know, people's personal photographs and things are kept on the same devices that their plot to commit massive fraud might also be kept on. So the court does and can get involved to make sure that only the files that are relevant to the investigation are subject to the investigation.
Right. Denise, there's an interesting corollary to this debate, and that is the fact that LE, once they get into a device, let's say your smartphone, they have access to a lot more information than just what's on the device. It's whatever your device is connected to. Is that differentiated in the law? Is a cloud-connected service that's accessible through the phone, is that served by the same warrant for the phone?
I think law enforcement would say that it is, and I think that that is a very open issue under the law. If you are logged into things on your device that is properly accessed by law enforcement, I think you get what you get. You know, you might be able to come in and object and say it was beyond the scope of what was reasonable to have foraged through my Facebook or Instagram account, but if you're logged in and they can convince the court that it's relevant, I think you're out of luck.
All right. Well, Lou, let me jump over to this. Let's move forward a little bit and actually talk about some of the practicals of doing this. So the DOJ, essentially what they are suggesting, and of course it'll be more refined than this, but they'd like all keys to access the hardware, no matter what it is, a smartphone or a networking switch, to be accessible by the DOJ, somewhere where they can get access to it. Not in the way that Chibert suggested, which is one-time use, but sort of trust us with the master keys and we promise we won't do anything bad with them. Is this something that the regular, typical, non-TWiET audience will understand? Will Joe Schmo on the street understand what it means that the government controls the keys to install software on his phone?
No, I don't think they're going to understand that. I think they're just going to understand that we're just letting the government access their privacy and giving them the keys to the kingdom. I like to put an analog in this as well. Just kind of throw this out there. Is I like to correlate this to, device management by enterprises. So when I put my device on a network, I might be stepping into or agreeing to being part of device management, where they can, remotely wipe your device or remotely wipe data that you're on your device. Look at, touch your email, remove files on your phone that might be related to them. And so you're kind of giving up really your device to that enterprise. And I don't necessarily see a difference between the two here. So I think that that's also something we should probably discuss. But in the same sense, if normal consumers are not going to really understand what we're actually giving up here. And I think that's the problem is if we go in to vote about this and add some stuff to the law, people are not going to really understand what they're really giving up.
Chibert, what about that? Actually, that's a great point. Is it time to educate the public as to what they're giving up? Don't try to explain the law. Just say, look, if you're okay with this, these are the things that you considered rights previously that are no longer your rights. Is that the way to educate?
I've tried all kinds of things. There's always been problems with educating the public. There are going to be, vast majority are probably going to understand. But then there's going to be a whole bunch of people that don't understand, can't be educated about it, and are going to be really, really vocal. So the reality is education is going to have to be there. The world is changing. There are certain things we are going to have to probably give up. I think it's in the same category as, what channels am I watching on my cable box? And that metadata is being collected. I think the same things are going to start happening with a lot of electronic devices, and it's a sad factor in this new world.
Yeah, indeed. Well, gentlemen, we're going to get back to this because this is a very important issue, but I do want to get to our main topic, especially now that we've got Denise on the line, which is all about credit reporting, and the way that we identify ourselves. Now, we understand that with the Equifax breach and with everything that's been surrounding that, there's been a bigger push this time, and maybe it's enough to finally look at the ways that we keep our data, our sensitive data private, and the ways that we identify ourselves in an increasingly computer-based world. Now, on the legal side, we know that lawmakers want to enforce and enact laws and regulations that dissuade and prevent debacles like Equifax. Now, one scenario that we're going to look at here is a company getting on board with letting that company completely control and marketplace your data as long as they keep all of that data under tight security. Now, ultimately, this standard is going to be left up to Congress. They're going to have to decide whether or not it's something that we want to implement for the people of the United States. But we've got a couple of other options. Tibert, you've been the one shepherding this. I want to bring you in first. What should we be looking at as we start a panel discussion of fixing this mess? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Education. That's the long and short of it. The American public needs to be a lot better educated about what their credit scores are and what kind of information these three, maybe four. There's like 3.5 corporations that do this type of thing. And to understand why that SSN was never, ever, ever meant to be a national ID. So I'm actually saying two things. One, there's a lot of education, but two, Congress needs to make a move. We need to go away from using the SSN as a national ID, which it was never, ever, ever designed to be. It was supposed to be to track federal retirement benefits, for heaven's sakes.
Okay, and so what's the alternative? I mean, we've been long proponents of not using the SSN, but everyone uses the SSN because everyone has an SSN. Is there enough anger to push people towards having a unique, replaceable number or identifier?
One can only hope. And JJ is pointing out there is a bill going through Congress right now. And I should also point out, let's see if we can find the URL. Estonia has actually gone to a cryptographic national ID, and so is Hungary and the Philippines. The technology is there. You know, I mentioned in the bite that why can't we have a one-time, you keep your master, you own your data, but you do some sort of mechanism that gives, say, a credit card company a one-time access to your records. And so that's what it's kind of sounding like. That's what Hungary and the Philippines are working towards. The Estonians apparently got in really, really early, and they've already found some flaws in it. But the big key to a cryptographic national ID is the ability to change, because it's not that we hope we're never going to get breached. We're probably going to have more. You and I were both victims of OPM. What we need, though, is we need something that will allow us that after a breach, we can change our records or change the ID or change the access codes, just like we change passwords. So I think that's what needs to happen. And we're finally at a point where the technology should work. And Jack is saying, Denmark has one, two-factor.
But okay, I mean, we're talking about revamping the CRC, the credit reporting company industry. But Lou, here's the thing. What Tibert proposed still has an entity or multiple entities controlling your data. If you're going to give one-time access, you still have to give them one-time access to something, someone who was trusted enough to have your credit history and all your personal information and all the things that would be required for a decision about giving you a line of credit, a loan, a credit card, or even a job, or a new cell phone. Does that just move the pain down the road? Because right now, what we're seeing with Equifax and the big credit unions that we have in the United States is that they haven't really been held to a standard of protecting our data. They've been able to profit with the promise that they'll protect our data to a reasonable extent, but there's been no definition of reasonable extent, and there's really been no civil penalties for them not doing so. So is this just the same system, but with a fancy chip in a passport-looking device?
I think so. I think, you're let's generalize it. So let's just say there's always an authority. Whether the authority is yourself and you store your data to yourself and you give it up just in time for when people request it, or you trust a third-party authority to hold that data. And no matter either way, there's always a risk. And I think, if I were to hold my data, it all now risks that I can maliciously alter that data to make it beneficial for me. So if I hold my credit data and they ask for it and I give it up, it could be falsified credit data. But if then we trust a third party that is a trusted third party, then they have to secure it in some way, and there will always be a way to unsecure it. So the question is, should we really be storing that data in one place? And now you make it harder and more nebulous for people to be able to collect that data and then you wrap standards around how they store the data and where they store the data, and that becomes even harder. And so you kind of pile those things on until it becomes much harder as a deterrent for people to try to attack and relinquish that data. And now you have a more secure system and more of a trusted party. But again, that doesn't mean it never will be fully secure. So I think that there's always going to be that kind of ambient issue surrounding it.
Right. Now, we've got a couple of people in our chat room who are bringing up the point that, like, for example, CR1 is saying a few years back, a national ID was suggested. It was roundly shot down on partisan lines. We're not going to get into that. We're just going to say that that idea of having something that's secure, that's unique, under which all of your sensitive data can be compiled is not a new one. There just hasn't been the political will for it. But Denise, I want to throw it to you because I need to know, what are the legal ramifications of doing this? So if Congress was to act and say, you guys are doing a horrible job at this, we're going to take control, we're going to create an agency that's not the Social Security agency, that helps to create unique IDs and keeps our citizens from suffering ID theft, and that's going to be this new national ID program. Are there any legal concerns that I should have in the back of my head as they start to form that?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I question the premise that Congress would ever do such a thing, form such an agency, because I really see that happening in the private sector, that companies who want to manage your information as a consumer in a secure way have a better shot of doing it competently if they're subjected to market forces, in addition to regulation that requires them to be responsible with the data. But the thing that I've been thinking about as we've been having this discussion, you used the term market placing earlier, the data, Padre.
Yeah.
And that's what the credit reporting agencies have been doing forever, just without a whole lot of public knowledge that that's what they're about. They have agreements with your credit card companies and your lenders where they get all this personal information from you that you've not given them. You've only given it to the credit card companies. Well, they have it because they're amassing your credit history as you interact with them, and your lenders do the same. So this is not information that consumers have willingly given over to Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, but that they have because they've done these side deals with the lenders and have been profiting from all that. So I think that Congress and the public are starting to be aware of the fact that, gee, wouldn't it be nice if consumers did have more control over that data and could pick who was managing and market placing it for them, as you put it, Padre. So I really see it more shaping up on the private sector front than on the congressional front. But also, as far as what Congress might do or actually concretely is trying to do, there was just legislation proposed yesterday by a Congressman, Patrick McHenry, who has introduced what is being called the PROTECT Act. It does a few things, and again, it's a brand new baby bill, so there haven't been hearings on it. It hasn't wended its way through the process at all yet. But it would create an oversight examination process for the big three credit bureaus that would require them to adhere to uniform cybersecurity standards and would submit them to on-site examinations. It would also require them to stop using Social Security numbers as a basis for identification by 2020.
But we've had that before, right? I mean, we've had several instances where businesses have been told you can't use a Social Security number. You're not supposed to use a Social Security number. And yet, we're all still using our Social Security numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a terrible problem. It would be, obviously this particular piece of legislation only applies to the credit reporting agencies. So it would be nice if your Social Security number were not this thing that could bring you down if it gets into the wrong hands. And I think that the solution to that is both legal and technical, and that it probably involves having more rules like this proposed one, that companies shouldn't use them and need to be punished if they are using them.
Cheever, let me go to you, because Denise brings up a couple of interesting points around that marketplacing of your data. And the first is, and I think this ties into your education, a lot of people are only now, as the details of what's been happening with the CRCs are coming out, only now are they realizing, oh, yeah, there are these companies that have all my data, and I never gave them permission. You know, as Denise mentioned, they've got agreements with credit card companies to get your credit scores and to get your credit history. They've got agreements with different financial institutions, which is why sometimes our credit scores vary from service to service to service. Is that part of the education, to let them know, hey, by the way, your data is being sold. There are companies making millions of dollars off your data. You're not a customer, you're the product.
Yeah, and the other big problem is these credit bureaus make it very, very difficult to make corrections. You know, like, for instance, my wife, somehow or another, her credit history got mixed up with her sister's. And it was a horrible, horrible process to get it fixed. So the U.S. citizenry, and actually it's looking like it's a global problem because of all the problems, is that credit is something that is unfortunately an absolute necessity. And the system is designed around credit bureaus that, you know, that's the only way they work now. And the citizens need to realize they need to be a lot more careful about their information. I personally think we need to get a lot of procedures in place so that your records are, quote, locked until someone gives you permission. You know, it's default off or default no access. And the general public doesn't, a lot of people that, you know, I've talked to don't even realize, especially millennials, they don't even realize they can lock their records. And education's a really, really big deal. You know, sadly, there's a lot of the American public that don't even really understand how credit works.
Right. Right. And they don't want to understand, because wanting to understand means you'd have to do something about it. And it's much easier just to assume that someone is going to take care of it. But Lou, let me throw another assertion that Denise made. And I thought this was interesting. She said, look, it's not going to happen from Congress. This is not a government program. This is going to happen from a private organization that maybe has increased regulation and oversight from Congress. That's doable. Do you agree with that? Does this have to happen as sort of a capitalist endeavor, a company that is going to say, you're going to want to deal with us because we're going to be transparent with you, we're going to keep your data safe, and yes, we will make money off your data, but making money off your data also means that you can do things like easily apply for a mortgage. Is that a trade-off that you think the American people are ready to make?
I think that you just described credit card companies, right? I think you just described the Equifax. I think that if they're regulated hardcore, I'd say yes. I think there'll be a little bit more trust there. But I think that you know I can go and invent a new identity service, or that I can then go sell to many different companies, like like Apple Pay or something. Like I can go invent something. That doesn't mean everyone's going to adopt it. That's number one. Number two is, again, you're still enforcing, saying I'm in a private sector that's making profit off your data, and the more I let people see that data, or the more that they make use of that data, I make more money. And so that's basically like the credit card agencies out there today. So I don't know if there's a better alternative here other than maybe having the government run it themselves.
Okay, well, I want to get to Denise about that in just a bit, but Cheever, let's go back to you. Having the government run this, does that fill you with hope?
Yes and no. There's actually been conversations of the U.S. Postal Service.
Oh.
It was originally proposed as running a national email exchange system, so that you would have an email address as part of your, just like postal. because the postal system was losing tons and tons and tons of money, and they were scrambling for a way to survive. But you stop and think about it. The Postal Service actually has an IT organization that is stunningly large to manage all of this. And I don't know, I kind of trust the U.S. Postal Service. You would be surprised at the value of the stuff that gets sent around the world using the U.S. Postal. Brit Mail, UK Mail is well trusted, and so forth. Maybe. But anyway, yeah, I do agree. A national ID run by the government, my knee-jerk reaction is, yeah, that's something I may not trust. But then again, considering what Equifax has done to the world, I don't trust them either. So maybe a quasi-governmental something, somewhere halfway in between. What do you think?
Specs in the chat room has an idea. I said, oh, so we need something that everyone uses and everyone has a unique identifier and that can be tied to everything that we do. Why not hand it over to Amazon? Which is only half joking. You could almost kind of do that. But Denise, a lot of this whole government or private entity, it hinges around forcing a company to do the right thing. Because as we've seen with Equifax, it's been week after week of head slapping, head shaking action of, my goodness, how did you ever think that was going to be okay? And then this anger, because we're starting to realize Equifax is going to get away with this with nothing more than a wrist slap. They're still going to make record profits. In fact, they're going to make profits off of selling products to protect the identities of the people that they exposed. What is currently in the law that allows us to force companies to do the right thing? Is there a way to punish Equifax, or there should be a way to punish Equifax?
Certainly responsibilities to keep certain sensitive kinds of data secure, and there are penalties and disclosure requirements. They're not anywhere near as stringent as those requirements would be, say, in the EU. But we do have things on the books that impose responsibilities on these companies. We clearly need more and teeth in the enforcement. But what I think we're going to see, just to push back on Lou for a second, is not your credit card company, and certainly not the credit reporting agencies, but a new breed of company spring up where the consumer is the customer, and the consumer's needs, wants, and desires are what drive the company's bottom line. So it's not just that they're making money off the data, they are making a business off of managing the data responsibly. And that's something we simply haven't seen bubble up yet, but that people are working on, and that could be regulated as its own separate industry that would hopefully tick all the boxes that we're talking about here today. Anybody interested in looking sort of at the nuts and bolts of what people are trying about this should check out the acronym VRM, which stands for Vendor Relationship Management. Whole bunch of entrepreneurs and thinkers and folks sort of loosely associated with the Berkman Center at Harvard who have been thinking about this and working on it for years. To Lou's point about that doesn't mean that people are going to buy into the notion. Yeah, it hasn't gotten a lot of traction, but I think with more and more events like what we've seen from Equifax, people will say, I really want a trusted third party who I feel is accountable and the law makes accountable, who will manage my data and then throw it to the wolves, when and as and in what little bits I authorize. That's where I'd like to see us go.
I like that. Okay, so unfortunately, I can't believe it, but we're already running out of time. Let's open this up for some final discussion. As we are looking forward, there's still a lot of anger that has to come out. There's still a lot of sort of ranting that needs to be done. But what are some steps? If you were to do three things, what would the three things be? Let's start with you, Lou. So fixing the credit system, three things that need to happen.
So I think the three things that need to happen, I think the first thing that needs to happen is I need to be able to control my data. So the GDPR type regulations where, like, if I want to pull my data anytime or I don't want anybody to access my data, they need to make it really easy to do. It needs to be exactly the same regulations as GDPR have today that are, in Europe. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is I think we need to find a better way to secure our identity. I think that's another thing. And then finally, I think that we need to have more regulations about how it's stored.
All right. Brian, what about you? What are your three?
As much as I hate how complicated and convoluted and cumbersome HIPAA is, there's some really good gems of the regulation in there. Maybe Congress needs to go and take a good hard look at that and then go and talk to the people in the industry to find out what doesn't work in HIPAA and use that as a fix.
I like that. So take an existing program that we've already been sort of needling at, trying to fix, and use that as the basis for the sort of national ID system. Cheebert?
Yes, Cheebert.
Yeah. I thought you were going on to Denise. Sorry, man.
No. And so, Denise, same question to you. What are the three things that you would take into this process to help revamp or fix our national ID/CRC system?
Well, I think that Congress needs to recognize that there's a problem with ownership of user data, and that should prioritize the mechanisms and understanding of that, should take steps to put users in control of their data, who has it and in what amounts, and likewise should foster an ecosystem that would manage the data responsibly and should enact laws that have teeth and penalties that compel that responsible behavior.
I like that. Give it teeth to make sure that they do the right thing, and if they don't, actually have a way to compel them to do the right thing. I think that's a nice balanced approach. Well, yep. I'm sorry, folks, but we've done it again. We've actually gone over our time. That's right. You've spent another hour listening to the best dang enterprise podcast in the universe. That's according to 9 out of 10 secret courts. I want to thank everyone here who has made this show possible. Of course, to Denise Howell. Denise, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sorry we've had all these technical problems, which is strange because your show just went off without a hitch 20 minutes before we started. But please.
It's Halloween. There's a ghost in Skype.
Exactly. But the TWiET Right loves you. Please tell them where they can find you, both at TWiT and outside of TWiT.
Of course. So I do a show on TWiT called This Week in Law, and we record every Friday. twit.tv/TWiL. You can find all of our episodes there. And I'm at denisehowell.info if you'd like more info.
And hopefully it's not 100 episodes before we do another crossover, because I really do enjoy having you on the show. Again, Denise, thank you so very much.
I know, me too. It's your turn now.
I know. Yes, I'm there. I'm there. You just tell me. Also, we have to thank my co-hosts. Yes, my co-horses, starting with Lou Maresca. Lou, where can people find you and your work?
So you can always find my work at dev.office.com, all of the development experiences you have within building on top of Office. Check it out there. And, of course, you can find me on Twitter at LouMM.
And by the way, he is Iron Man, according to his son. So there we go. Yeah, that's right. Someone who isn't Iron Man is my good friend, the Geek in Paradise, Mr. Brian Cheebert. Are you coming to the mainland anytime soon?
I'm actually going to be cruising through what's left of the Caribbean in December with the Franklins. And going neighborhood shopping in Orlando afterwards.
Oh, actually, I might meet up with you. I've got a little thing going on. So
yeah, so it ought to be fun. I'm going to be staying with my godmother and then through the holiday seasons with the Franklins. But anyway, I am ADVNETLAB on Twitter, or I'm Cheebert at twit.tv. And oh, by the way, we are going to have a second TWiL crossover a little bit later with Mike Keys. And we're going to be talking about the massive legal database called LexisNexis.
See, that's already caused a collective groan across the internet. And that's both a good and bad thing. It's a very polarizing service. We're going to find out exactly why. Now, folks, of course, thanks to them and thanks to you. Without you, we wouldn't have this show, all these episodes of This Week in Enterprise Tech, all these years. It's because you keep coming back every single week that they keep us on the air, and we want to thank you by making it easier for you to access the content. Just go to our show page at twit.tv/TWiET. That's TWiET, This Week in Enterprise Tech. There you'll find all of our back episodes all the way back to episode 1, as well as the notes. If you want to see the links to the stories that we talked about or the companies that we've covered, you're going to be able to find it at twit.tv/TWiET. And also there you'll find a subscription menu. Just choose the version of your choice, and it'll be delivered to your device of choice automatically each and every single week. Audio, video, high-definition video, no matter how you want to consume TWiET, we're going to make sure you get it. Again, twit.tv/TWiET. Don't forget you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/PadreSJ. If you follow me there, not only will you find out what I'm doing when I'm here at TWiET, but you get to see what I'm doing when I'm jumping around the world or just messing around in my lab making things that probably blow themselves up. Again, twitter.com/PadreSJ. Finally, thanks to everyone here who makes this show possible, to Alex and John and Burke, our engineers, to my TD today, who is Karsten. And Karsten, normally this is the time when I ask the TD a question about the episode. Kevin has never gotten right. I want to try it with you because I know you're a TD of a different caliber. Let me just ask you, from the knowledge of today's episode, what does the DOJ stand for?
District of Jersey.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're keeping our record going of just not having TDs who were paying attention, but thanks for playing. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballister, the Digital Jesuit, just reminding you that if you want to know what's going on in the Enterprise, just keep TWiET.